Okay, then today we have another episode of Peace TV, and the guidelines of Peace TV are to contribute to a better understanding of the questions of life, society, and the laws of nature in the coexistence of us people, demonstrate how to help as a better, healthier, and more peaceful coexistence society. And in the third, we want to promote a happier life in prosperity and creativity, how to find spouse and eternal partners, and how to make the environment in nature and the world of work livable. So we want to support this from Peace TV. And today I am very pleased to welcome Enrique Miguel Sanchez Motos, a Spanish friend and longtime activist. And he is a former senior civil servant in the Spanish public administration. He's an agricultural engineer and has a law degree, MS in Master in Economic Planning and Rural Development, and also he has his own NGO as president of Thinkers Without Borders. And he is the former General Secretary of CAUSA. So I'm pleased to welcome you, Enrique, and today's topic is that we discuss, and I want to have your profound experience to ask you about many things, why we need to defeat Marxism. So you're really a long time president of CAUSA who is in this work, did the work. So my first question is like, essentially, what is the reason that support your point of view that is necessary to defeat Marxism? Enrique, is your floor.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you to Peace TV for inviting me to stay here. And I would say that we are now in this period, we are entering a new era. The past era was the era of the blind faith, the emotion, and even during the French Revolution, emotion win over the enlightenment, over the reason. But nowadays, we are entering in a new era. That era should be the era of the light. And the era of the light needs the truth. But often, truth is hidden by the darkness. And we need to clearly understand what is darkness and what is truth. So I have chosen this subject, the need to defeat Marxism, because I consider that is very important. I would like to shock the listener, suggesting a theoretical situation of things. Let's imagine that China would be right now under a national socialist Nazist regime. That Cuba would be either under a national socialist Nazist regime. That Venezuela, Korea del Norte, Nicaragua would be also in this line. And also, let's imagine that in the European universities, in particular in the faculties of politics and social sciences, a lot of professors would be sympathetic with these national socialist issues, or at least tolerant with them. Let's imagine that. What would you say? I suppose that most of you would say that that is not acceptable, that is the wrong way to live, because how that would be possible after having the 20th century problem with national socialism to keep living on this ideology? Well, my point of view is that our situation is worse than that, because the communism is worse than Nazism. Both are evil, but communism is really, really very bad and is still alive. And that what I have told is a reality. China is still communist, not in the economic field. That is a very important thing to discuss later. But Cuba is also in this Marxist traditional theory. The same North Korea, the same Venezuela, Nicaragua is going the same way. And also, and that is the main problem, in the Western countries, a lot of professors are well sympathetic with Marxist ideas that are behind the communism, or at least tolerant to them. So I think we need to talk about that, because nowadays, in the 21st century, it's quite clear that communism has been really evil for the humankind in the past century, and still is being in the place where it dominates. So we need to understand that clearly, and then to try to understand why it's needed to defeat it, and also how to defeat it.
Yeah, Enrique, these are very important points, and you covered quite a lot of fields, almost worldwide, China to North Korea to Cuba and all this. I mean, I understand that many people, if you ask them today, then they say actually communism has failed to fulfill the promises in every field what you can think. But still there is some kind of idealistic attractiveness looks for me. So what is in your mind, what is the strategy of communism to reach the power? Because they cannot show too many results, actually.
Well, I think the communists still consider that they can win. Let's see, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua. All South America has a big risk to be in flames by the communism. And that's why, because the communism appeared as the best political vision to produce social justice, to get social justice. And also, behind the communism, still there is a Marxist ideology that people respect. And that is the same as if we were now respecting Mein Kampf of Hitler. That is incredible, because this ideology is quite clear in the ways to become a political regime. People often want to separate Marxist theory from the practical of communism. There is no separation at all. Lenin, in his book, The State and the Revolution, that was written just a little 1 month before the October Revolution of 1917, really very well explains in this book that all what he was going to do was in the Marxist ideology. And that is true, because Marxist ideology has three main legs, three main pillars. The first pillar is to use the violence to abolish the normal bourgeois system. The second one is to abolish the private property of means of production. And the third point is that they want to do that, establishing the proletariat dictatorship. That is in the Marxist ideologies. That is not only in the communist practice, it's in the Marxist ideologies. And whenever we encounter some people that defend that is in agreement with the Marxism, we need to ask him, still do you believe that the violence is the right way to solve things? No, I don't believe that anymore. So you are not Marxist anymore. Still you believe that to abolish the private property is the way to produce richness and goodness for everybody in the world? That is the best way? no, I don't think that anymore. So you are not Marxist. So what type of Marxist are you? Marxist is Marx and Engels ideas. Other ideas are other ideas. You can say that you are a theoretical, you follow Gramsci, okay, but you are not Marxist. Please confess that you are not Marxist and we can keep talking. But if you don't say that you are not Marxist, I still need to suppose that you are for the violence, for the abolition of private property, and for the dictatorship of the proletariat.
Okay, this gives me a bit more clear picture that you make very clear wherever we can see violence as a means to push through, then there is a probable cause behind, as it is now happening in many areas in the world, that violence is very often used on many levels. And would you say that many times there is some Marxist idea behind? Even people themselves sometimes are not Marxist, or they're just thinking to make a social revolution, but actually it's like to weaken our Western society, to destroy shops, attack the police, and attack the government, basically. Do you think this is a strategy to undermine our Western society?
Well, there are a lot of questions in your sentences. Well, I would say first, violence has existed, unfortunately, all long human history. Violence. That happened. Nowadays, every day more, we are against violence. But the point is that when you are a Marxist, this violence is justified.
Okay.
It's not just a mean. That is justified. It's normal because people is suffering the oppression of the capitalism. So Marxist theories explain that after capitalism will come socialism and then communism. And that is because it's a natural evolution of history. History is a history of classes struggle continuously. And then the moment has arrived that the proletariat are so many and the capitalists are so few that is the moment to overthrow capitalism and to take it over and establish the communism. That is the Marxist theory. So the violence is justified. Why to wait more? So that is the key point regarding the Marxists. But of course, that helps to people to be very violent against the capitalism. First, because they don't know what is capitalism. Capitalism is not a political idea. Capitalism is just an economical point of view. Capitalism just said that to produce richness, you need to have the market economy and to have also the private property. That's just. And then we know that from the past till now, the relation with the worker, with the employees, between the entrepreneur, this employee, has become better and better in the Western societies. And they can reach a lot of agreement peacefully, and that is better for everybody. So the violence there doesn't exist. But in some countries, for example, in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, the Marxist idea is behind, and that is the reason why they propose the violence to do. In other countries, of course, there are violence by other reasons. That is another way. But the point is that in some countries, this Marxist idea are pushing and justifying the violence, and in other countries that are neighboring of these countries, also they began to consider that maybe the violence is the good way to change the things.
Thank you very much. This shows me very clearly that this is not just accidentally happening violence like in Vietnam or Cambodia where the killing fields were. So this was, they just followed the Marxist idea basically to kill and to really do what they are doing. So the question is, this answered basically the strategy how communism is trying to reach the power. This has to be, cannot say it more often, more clearly as you said it. And my other question is, why do you consider that the intellectual circles are so much sympathy and tolerance regarding Marxism if this has this kind of devastating, and actually the intellectuals are the first ones to be killed basically from the Marxists or transplanted to the rural areas? So why the intellectual circles are so sympathetic for Marxist ideas?
Well, I'm going to say something that is not so nice to be here, to be listened, and that is that in any place, a lot of human beings just adapt themselves to the power, to the thing that is in power. They don't want to be against the, what is the, we say the I don't remember in English the word, but that what is accepted. And then if they show themselves against the line that is being accepted as the progressive one, it seems that they are going to be rejected. And then they say, okay, I prefer at least be sympathetic and not criticize the Marxists, trying to intellectually understand that one thing is communism and another thing is Marxism. And that they prefer to be at least tolerant. But others are sympathetic because they have been confused with Frankfurt School and all these type of things that indeed I would put to them always the same question. But really, do you believe in Marx and Engels theories or not? Because if not, you are Marxist. But then the professor often considers that that is in the mood, that helps them to be, oh, you are quite young people, you look young because your mind is so fresh that you are still considering that the social justice is the most important thing to achieve and that the Marxist views are the real way to do that. And then that happened. That is normal because we need to remember, we, the European, that 2 years ago, when it was the bicentenary of the birth of Marx, Claude Juncker, the European Commission president, went to the inauguration of this statue in Triers, Germany, that was in a statue donated by the Communist China, a statue to Marx. Okay, what would happen if tomorrow in the Austrian place, I don't remember the name, where Hitler was born, somewhere, Brunner, exactly. There, someone could go there and say, okay, we are going to put a statue to Hitler. People would say, that is not at all logical. So why Claude Juncker went there to inaugurate the statue of Marx that was the reason of the communism later? So that offered a coverage for people to say, okay, I on this side, okay. If I'm not Marxist, at least I tolerate that. I consider that that is such intellectual approach, valid intellectual approach, and that creates a field that is very good for the activists to produce violence and to produce and to try to create and to create. In Spain, for example, we have the vice president belong to a communist party that accepts Marxism, that doesn't criticize Venezuela. So this type of general tolerance with the Marxists make that the professor, the intellectual, say, okay, that is the good line. Don't worry, keep there. Or even if you go to talk about that, even you can become vice president of the Spanish government.